Dave Arnold, your host of Cooking Issues, coming to you live from the heart of Manhattan and Rockefeller Center, New York City. Joined, Newsstand Studios. Joined as usual with John over there, way over the other end of the booth today. How you doing, John?
Doing great, thanks.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah?
All's good.
Really?
Except for the weather lately, but other than that, it's fine.
I mean, I don't know. You know what? Nastasia, the Hammer Lopez, who's in Stanford, she hates people that change their behavior based on the weather.
I mean, unfortunately, I can't change anything based on the weather. I still have to do what I have to do, but it doesn't make life fun.
Yeah, but in other words, like, people who only have fun when the weather is nice, she finds what, Stas?
Week.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I guess what I'm getting at is working in the kitchen has been hot and very humid and very unpleasant.
Yeah. Well, that's fair. That's fair. Yeah. Anyway, like tomorrow I'm going to North Adams. I'm going to this like a place that the family goes called Tourists, and it's kind of cool. But they're like, oh, it's going to be raining. I'm like, don't care. Wait, where is it? Austin? You're in Austin right now, or San Antonio, Mr. Molecules?
Austin, Texas.
Austin, Texas. Nice.
And it's disgusting here. It's like 106 every day.
Yeah.
Humid and miserable.
Is it bat season or not bat season? I'm never there during bat season.
You know, it must be bat season. I heard them by the bridge. The Line Hotel here is like, I look right out to the South Congress Bridge where all the tourists kind of line up to watch the bats at sunset.
So you heard them, but I haven't. You heard the bats, but you're like, I'm not going to bother looking out the window.
No, I looked. I didn't see. I heard them earlier in the day.
Okay.
They're very loud.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of a weird tourist thing.
Bat season.
Man, bats.
I know, right?
Yeah. Bats. I mean, I don't know. I don't get it. Like, unless it's a lot of bats. Unless it's a horror show. If it's a horror show, I mean, I've seen flocks of birds, and I'm like, oh, that's pretty. I want to look at that, but I'm not going to fly to see a flock of birds.
All right.
Yeah. Oh my God, you know who I didn't introduce yet behind me? Joe Hazen on the panels. How you doing?
Hey, it's great. It's kind of weird to be behind you.
Yeah, that's I didn't see you there.
Yeah, no, I kind of need to set a mirror up or something.
Yeah, like one of those pedestrian saver things.
Yeah, like circular, kind of like weird. Yeah,
that would be strange. And in the upper left, we got Quinn. How you doing?
Hey, I'm good.
No. And back again, but way before their book, Tropical Standard, came out, way before then, we had on a good friend, ex-existing conditions, the no longer extant conditions, Garrett Richard, and his co-author, Ben Schaefer of Tropical Standard, co-author of that, rum reader for Ben, Garrett. I don't know, well, you guys can say what you're up to, but now the book is out, and are you almost done? Hey, guys.
Hey.
Yeah.
What's up? Glad to be back on Cooking Issues.
So, how long ago were you on? Were you on like 6-8 months ago?
We were on in November.
How many months is that? Like 8?
It's like 6 or 8 months ago.
Yeah. Okay, and so now the book came out like a couple of months ago, and Ben, you've been running this full ragged, on a tour. You want to tell? First of all, like for those who haven't heard the first episode where we talked, in depth about the book and everything, you want to just let them know what the book's about a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Ben, what's the elevator pitch for a Tropical Standard?
Well, I like to think of it as combining, it's like a third stream project, right? So it's combining the influence of the craft cocktail revival, as exemplified by people like Dale DeGroff, and the tropical drink revival, exemplified by people like Jeff Beachbum Berry, but bringing those two things together that should never have been put asunder in the first place, and in doing so, tying it all together with the cutting-edge culinary techniques developed by people such as, and this may come as a shock to you, Dave Arnold.
That guy's a jerk, and he does not know what he's talking about.
Right,
yeah.
I noticed that.
Yeah,
but we cut him some slack in the book. So it's really about using those kind of techniques to get to places where you can't get to without them, and trying to take tropical drinks kind of in a little bit of a different direction with new flavors and textures that, I think people are really excited about. Whenever we serve these drinks to people, they get it. Whenever people seem to read the book, they seem to get it. We're excited to, we've been doing a tour, which we'll talk about in a minute, and it's been great to get in front of people and show them what it's all about.
Yeah.
I mean, when I first started it existing, I think you said to us when we were doing staff training, like, a good way to create a drink is, like, find a problem and solve it.
Yeah.
And at the same time as, like, working with you and Don Lee, I was doing my own pop-up of tropical drinks called Exotica at Rain's Law Room, and yeah, those drinks have a lot of problems. There's a lot of things to fix, and that's really like that's where the ethos came out of the book. Is really just that simple thing of like, what are some things that tropical drinks don't do well, and how can we address them? And mostly that's through technique, which is what the book's focus is.
Right. I mean, yeah, it's like a lot of the problems, right, of any kind of old spec like that is one. And you talk about this a lot, when you fetishize something that's from the past, and that's in also, not only is that in the past, the ingredients are different, the time is different, the place is different. So you can know the history, which of course, you guys know much better than I do because that's not my shtick, right? But then you have to also have as part of your kind of obsessiveness making it taste good.
Yeah.
I think that's where Garrett's genius lies, is that he's very good at going back and interpreting what the intention was of the original author of some of these classic drinks from the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, where, as you say, we don't have the ingredients the same, even produce is different, everything is different.
Spirit of the law, not letter of the law.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly. So even where the drinks don't have anything wrong with them, there's nothing to be fixed, you still have to reinterpret the drink in order to make it with today's stuff. I think that's something some people overlook. They say, hey, and I like to make the 1944 Vicks Mai Tai. It's like, well, we'd all like to do that, but you don't have the stuff.
Yeah, you should invent a time machine. By the way, time machine's never going to be possible. I hope you guys know this. Time machine's not one of those things ever going to happen. It's never going to happen.
We know.
It's not possible.
Yeah, that's why we have to write books.
That's why, exactly.
Yeah, because
that was one of the premises of this book as well.
This is what I tell, I used to tell my kids this all the time, but couldn't there be a time machine? I was like, if there was a time machine, you'd already know. They're like, what do you mean? I was like, because someone would have come back.
Yeah, there was a time travelers convention.
Yeah.
No one showed up.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
I think the famous example, of course, is Stephen Hawking held a party for time travelers and didn't announce it until afterwards, and of course no one came. But that might just prove that they didn't want to come to his party.
Yeah, because he was a renowned
kind of a
dick.
jerk. He was a jerk, yeah.
I
met him, actually.
Really? And was he a dick?
I mean, who can tell?
Jerk.
You couldn't tell. You couldn't really tell.
Yeah. Oh, well, he was only you only spoke through his person. He had a person who was his
right.
Who could, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't chat with him, but I was, I met him.
You didn't have coffee with him?
I didn't have, it wasn't a one-on-one thing.
Well, I'm sure he was nice in talking to large groups of people.
Right. But, you don't know if it's somebody else could be saying it. It's all coming off of his...
I appreciated it did
computer.
Futurama and The Simpsons,
Yeah. But he did? He was a fan of Futurama?
Yeah, he did both. He did both shows.
There is a Stephen Hawking joke in our book as well, so it's relevant.
Yeah, I don't remember. I did not fully reread it
We talk about A Brief History of Lime.
Yeah. Exactly. Huge book, blockbuster at the time.
Yeah.
All right, so before we go too deep into Tropical Standard, which I'm sure you guys can pitch this way if you want, which I know you will, but you guys have anything interesting happen in the past week or so? Culinary, cocktail? By the way, I apologize to people who don't like cocktails because it's going to be a very cocktail-heavy episode.
Yes.
Why would you apologize for people like that? They have only themselves to blame.
We have people who don't...
no, that's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
But we approach it from a culinary point of view.
Yeah. If you want to call in and you're on the Patreon, dial into 917-410-1507. That's 917-410-1507. And if you don't know what a Patreon is, John, what should they do?
Go to patreon.com/cookingissues. You can find out all about the different memberships we've got, all the different perks that come with it, including what's relevant to today's episode, discount with Kitchen Arts and Letters on Tropical Standard. You get certain levels, live access to the video feed. You get the recording before everyone else. You get prioritized questions answered. So yeah, check it out.
We have the Edwards Aged Meat discount going now.
Oh, that's right. The Edwards Aged Meat discount going now too, which is
good meat.
Really delicious.
Good meat.
Great meat.
Good meat.
Good meat.
Yeah.
So yeah, patreon.com/cookingissues.
Yeah. All right, Jack. Anything in tech? What are you eating? Only breakfast burritos for breakfast, lunch, and dinner? You should not have a breakfast burrito for dinner.
I'm having breakfast burritos for lunch. I would never have a breakfast burrito for dinner.
But what about breakfast for dinner?
And no, I'm not. I don't like that.
You never tuck into a pancake at dinner time?
No.
Is that a lot in
Definitely
106-degree weather? Like, I feel like burrito. That's
breakfast burrito.
That's
Well, they're breakfast
quite a
burritos.
bit.
I mean, you have to. That's what they do. Like, what else are you going to do?
Yeah, that's true.
You know? There's also that theory that the hotter it is, the hotter the food should be, both in spiciness and in heat temperature. Sweat it all out. And then when you walk out, you're like, oh, that's somehow a relief. Unless you're John, and you have to be in the kitchen making
big bowl of spicy broccoli ramen and tried that theory out, and it was still muggy, hot, and disgusting outside. Did
No
not help.
relief.
Yeah. Oh well.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Such is life. All right. What about you, Quinn? You always have some sort of culinary wackiness that you're working
yeah,
on.
I mean, I redid my pistachio gelato. That was really good.
What kind of pistachios are you using?
Whatever was at the grocery store.
The problem with pistachios, even like high-end pistachios like Bazzini. So Bazzini is the biggest nut purveyor here in New York City, or at least I guess the one that's most well known. And apparently, it used to be Italians that ran the nut business in New York City in the late 1800s, early 1900s. As I read this whole article about firehouses used to have weird pets, not just dogs. So they would have like monkeys and like all sorts of weird mascots. And this one monkey in Little Italy, down like on Lafayette Street, used to go steal from Italian nut vendors, and then rip, and then they fooled him and gave him hot nuts once to kind of burn his hands, and he freaked out and started clawing the peanut vendor apart. And this is all like in this old book, Firefighters and Their Pets. Jocko the monkey. Yeah. Anyway, point being that Bazzini, even though they are a long and storied history of nuts, if you dump their pistachios onto a sheet tray and look at them, some of them suck, and just a couple of crappy pistachios in a batch will ruin not ruin, but make worse a sorbet or an orgeat. And I've tested this many times.
Yeah, you give Jocko bad nuts, he's going to rip your face off.
He's going to rip your face off. I think history has shown that if you get some form of monkey or chimp and you keep it in one area, it will eventually rip your face off. Right, Nastasia?
Yes, that's your favorite story.
Yeah. So Nastasia grew up next to Mo, the chimp. Right, Stas?
Yeah.
And can you?
He lived with this guy and his wife, and he would sit outside on the grass, and we would go. My parents would drive past, and we'd honk the horn. Everyone would honk the horn and say hello to Mo. And then one day Mo lost it and ripped. And did what, Dave?
He ripped someone's nose. Well, it was so we determined. We looked at it. Here's what happened, right? So first of all, Mo would be my age now, right? If Mo was still alive, he'd be between Nastasia and my age. What happened is that he went a little bit crazy, and so he got taken away from the Mo handler. So Mo handler and Mo handler, the couple who had Mo, right? They couldn't have a kid, so they got a freaking chimp. Bad move. So they raised this chimp. And then eventually someone was like, no. And so the chimp got taken and put into a chimp sanctuary. They go to visit Mo for Mo's birthday. Two other chimps escape, rip the dude's nose off. Nose off.
That's rough.
Yeah.
Nuts.
What?
No, they ripped his nuts off, Dave.
Oh, yeah. They ripped his nuts off. Yeah.
Go back to Jocko the monkey.
Yeah.
It's full circle.
Yeah. So they rip off his cojones. Right. And then Mo escapes, never to be seen again. So Nastasia believes Mo is still alive in Southern California somewhere. And I believe he's dead.
Wanted dead or alive, yeah.
I believe he's dead.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. All right. Two quick things from me, and then we're going to get into because Ben is going to jump out of his seat and stab me with his water bottle.
Last time was honey baked ham. Now it's monkeys.
Honey baked. Why are you starting me with honey baked ham? It's delicious.
I'm not.
You just brought it up. Anyway,
I withdraw the question.
Yeah. Two things. One, Nastasia, do you remember when we went to the Park Hyatt Hotel and we were working there? Do you remember the bartender Isagai? So Isagai-san gave Dax, my younger son, just graduated from high school, so I'm done with that whole section of my life, right? So over high school graduation yesterday. So Dax comes to when he was 8? How old? He was really young, right, Stas? When we were there, it was 10 years ago, yeah. And this guy, Isagai, who was a bartender we were working with at the Park Hyatt, takes a liking to Dax, takes a silver chain off of his neck and puts it around Dax's neck and gives it to him. So we call it the Isagai chain, and he wore it to his graduation. And I was like, I wish I could find out if Isagai was still a bartender in Tokyo or not, but I don't have his last name and I can't look it up.
That's awesome, though.
Yeah, we got to find Isagai. Those guys were, first of all...
Call in if you know Isagai.
Yeah, the entire team at the Park Hyatt at the time was just freaking stellar. You know how when you go do an event, I'm sure you guys are doing a crap ton of events now?
Yeah.
And and you have weird requirements because you're not just like shaking lime with sugar and
Yes.
like whatever spirits
The
in the
past
background.
month of my life, yeah.
Yeah. By the way, I apologize.
No one has given us jewelry though. In any of the events.
You got to bring a kid with you. But like, I apologize. Yeah, but, like, anyone who is anyone out there who's choosing what to do with their life, choose something simple. Like, because when you're going to go do events and your stuff's non-standard, exactly 0 people understand what you actually require when you hit the ground there, and they never have the right stuff. They mean well, but they never have the right products. They never have the right kind of equipment, and they say they do, but it's not their fault because they don't work the way you do, right? Except those guys at the Park Hyatt. They crushed it. Remember, Styles? We showed up all nervous, and they crushed everything. I loved them.
They were amazing.
They were freaking amazing. They were good. Anyway, so there's that, the graduation and the Isegai chain. And secondly, I went to see a Broadway show last week. Broadway! And for the first time in a long time. And on the way home, you know how the trains here, they F up? And so they just switched the train to a different line without saying because the loudspeakers were broken. So all of a sudden now I had a half-hour walk home after I hadn't eaten because we don't do the early bird thing. So I'm so hangry, right? And I'm even more hangry because my wife, at a certain point, loses her hunger. She's like, I'm not hungry anymore. I don't even know how that works. You don't know people like this? They're like, I'm not eating, I'm hungry, I'm not even hungry anymore. It doesn't work for me. I don't work like that.
She opted out of hunger.
Yeah. I can't do that. Anyway, so I'm trying to get home, and down one of the main streets, Allen Street, there's a freaking flash bike mob, right? So they're running through the light. They're like they're a funeral procession. They're running through the freaking light. And so it was one whole light, and I'm steaming. And then there's another light, and it turns, and there's still more people. So I walk out in front of them. I'm like, yo, keep up with the pack. Crap on you. Just because you're slow doesn't mean I'm going to wait another freaking light. And Jen's livid with me because I'm like storming home. Then I finally make it into my neighborhood, which is Dime Square now. It's full of hipsters, like crawling with hipsters all the time now, which is kind of whatever. It's fine. It's good for the business. But this guy on a skateboard, I'm trying to cross the street. Guy on a skateboard starts coming towards me. He thinks I'm going to stop. Oh, yeah, 52-year-old guy, been to Broadway with a suit jacket on, is going to stop. I just put up my hand and go, boom! I strong-arm the guy. He goes off of his skateboard, right? I don't even look at him. I keep walking. He didn't even get mad at me because I didn't even yell at him. I just was like, no.
You know, Dave, the statute of limitations hasn't run out on that yet.
I was like, you shall go no further on your way. You don't get to run into me because you're on a dimwit on a skateboard. Anyway, that's it. All right, let's talk about some... And I went home and ate. And I was fine.
Yeah. He was in your way.
He wasn't in my way. He was coming towards me thinking I was going to yield to him because he was on a skateboard. I don't know if you know this. Pedestrians have the right of freaking way. Anyway, all right, food. Food and drinks. Food and drinks. All right. So you want to answer some questions and then go into like tour and what's going on?
No,
what do you want to do?
Let's talk about what we've been doing.
All right. Let's talk about what
we've had some culinary moments.
All right, go.
Some culinary moments.
Go.
So the book came out about a month ago.
Yeah.
Very exciting. We did an amazing event at Sunken Harbor Club here in New York where
enjoyed
Garrett
it.
is the head bartender.
Yeah.
You were there for a moment.
Yeah, it was double the people we expected.
Yeah.
It was nuts.
It was slammed the entire time. People were there. I got there. The event started at 6. I got there at 4:30. There were already people queuing up to get in.
No, God help.
And
God help.
it was surprisingly popular. But then we've been touring pretty exhaustively. We spent a week in San Francisco, which was really amazing.
Which I have never really gone out in San Francisco ever. So this was my first time getting to hang out in the city. Yeah, I grew up in LA, but and I would go there as a kid, like for a weekend or something. But I never really got to experience SF.
And is it because you were from LA that you're like, crap on them? What the hell?
No, I just never put the time in to when I would fly out over there, I would just be all family time. So I would never like spend 2 days to go up there. But we had such a good time hanging out with a friend of the book, Julio Bermejo, which we
that was really the highlight.
Yeah.
So we had the opportunity to do a panel discussion at Trader Vic's in Emeryville in the East Bay, and the way we talk about it in the book is there's two kind of titans of cocktails from the Bay Area. Obviously, Trader Vic himself caused to be created many, many, many important drinks, but in a way, maybe even more influential is the Tommy's Margarita, which was created by Julio Bermejo at Tommy's Mexican restaurant, and which is right now, being served, all over the world. In Cambodia, someone's being served a Tommy's Margarita right now.
Now give us a spec. Give us a spec for
it's
Tommy.
the default version of a margarita.
211.
Right.
And the agave nectar back in the day was Brix adjusted down to 50. So it's one of the
So
first
instead of
cocktails that was
Cointreau,
using.
What
instead
era
of
is this?
Cointreau, it's agave syrup.
What era is what era?
1980s.
Well, when was agave syrup available?
Like, it was. He talked about that quite at length.
Yeah, he talked about that on stage.
It was really
of how
kind of the
he-
beginning of agave syrup
Yeah.
being available.
Yeah.
And it's not still to this day standardized. I just did about 15, 20 hours of reading on agave, and it's freaking complicated. P.S. people, don't trust anything you read, even in scientific literature, about how sweet something is, because they never tell you the right units. Are they talking about sweetness by volume? Are they talking about sweetness by weight? Are they talking about sweetness at
Oh,
temperature?
that's a light years of difference. Yeah, absolutely.
Huge.
Luckily, I mean, the cool thing hearing Julio on stage at Trader Vic's was him talking about like him procuring the agave nectar, but even more so, he did like the soliloquy on limes, like talking about how, you know, he used to go at like 1 a.m. to his produce purveyor and pick a case of limes out of 4 cases based on like the right, you know,
Sort of like your pistachio
yeah.
point.
and what to look for, how to cut them, freshness of juice. I mean, it was, and you know, to the audience that was there, you know, half of them at probably the beginning of the talk were like, you know, I can juice once a week, right? And you know, he's like converting the damned, you know,
Well-
and doing a good job at it.
As a New Yorker, when it comes to limes, my rule is you get what you get and you don't get upset. Yeah, just order twice as many. Oh,
That's
it's
true.
the limes
Yeah.
have less juice right now. Guess what I'm going to do? Order twice as many. Yeah, that's because we have no choice here. No choice, no problem.
Yeah, it was. I mean, that was a pretty incredible event. I feel like we got to do some like nice old school San Francisco things. We got to do House of Prime Rib, which was great.
You know what's nice? The newer bars in San Francisco. How much room do they have behind those bars? Because they're all like built accessibly, so you're not bumping butts when you're working behind one of those newer California bars. They're great.
And also, every bar in San Francisco we saw was really friendly towards flash blending. Like most bars had a little Hamilton Beach in the corner, and even the older ones would have one, you know, from like the early 50s.
Now, well, don't get too much into it because we have
Yeah.
people asking questions about that stuff.
But Garrett, I think Garrett's missing out an important part of his resume. Because we were hanging out with Julio all week, we got the opportunity to do a little event at Tommy's, and Garrett got behind the bar and made El Diablos, which I think makes him a very small elite of people who've made their own
It was
drink
really
at
fun.
Tommy's rather than Tommy's Margarita.
All right, so for those of you that don't know, if you go to Sunken Harbor Club, right, many of you won't know. If you come to New York, you should go to Sunken Harbor Club. But you order, you're like, you know, you're from wherever, I don't know where you're from, Keokuk, Iowa, I don't know where you're from. You come in, and you're like, Diablo. And then they go off, and then when they make the drink, they go, Diablo, and then the entire bar goes, Diablo!
Yeah.
So you hear
It's
that.
a call and response.
We didn't do that
Garnish
part
is-
at Tommy's.
No,
Yeah.
I didn't do it.
You didn't do it? Why not?
I didn't feel like people would have been in on the like.
You don't need to be in.
It would have been. Yeah, it would have. Yeah.
You don't
It
need to be
was-
in on it. Who cares?
It was
Also,
about being there.
Garrett was only making El Diablo, so
Oh,
it
yeah.
would have been incessant.
Yeah, it would have been. It would have been a lot.
So, like, at the end, the stop sign was like, Diablo.
Yeah.
Diablo.
Then it just becomes work.
All right, so you got to. You can't just say words. You got to tell them the spec. What is a Diablo?
Oh yeah. Okay. So it's
Come
an
on.
old.
Remember,
it's-
this is a radio
the
show.
The El Diablo is an old Trader Vic drink. In Tropical Standard, we actually show its roots are much deeper. It has some connection to the original Tequila Sunrise, not the Orange Eagles version, but an older version that was served at a racetrack in the 30s. But
Wait, the Eagles gave a spec?
well, the Eagles have that orange grenadine nonsense that they talk about.
They don't give a spec.
No, they don't give a
There's
spec,
song.
but they like that version.
Well, who's saying? Which one of the Eagles singers sang that stuff? Which one of the? Is that a Fry situation?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Go
Yeah,
ahead,
but
go ahead.
but anyways, El Diablo. It's a cool drink in that it's a classic tequila drink that's not a margarita. That's also like really highlights the agave really well. So it's usually Blanco tequila, lime, ginger beer, Flota Cassis. The way we do it in the book is
Page 81, if everyone
Yeah.
wants to refer to their copy
Yeah.
of Tropical
We-
Standard.
The way we do it in the book is instead of ginger beer, we do a combination of ginger syrup, raspberry syrup, and we still keep the cassis, and then we do lemon instead of lime because I feel like the lemon works better with the cassis. And then we use a little bit of cardamom because the cardamom kind of gives it that brewed ginger beer kind of flavor
Green?
to it. Yeah, toasted green in a tincture, which I feel like is like a thing. We talk about it at Tropical Standard a lot. I use it more and more now at Sunken Harbor, is like isolating flavors with no sweetness and just doing tinctures of them.
Yeah, it's a little bit different though. In other words, yeah, it's a good way to be like precise, but you do get different flavors when things are infused in a syrup versus not.
Alcohol extracts different flavors.
So, alcohol, water with sugar as opposed to just water, and glycerin all extract different flavors. Glycerin's also a good extractive, but different.
Yeah, works good on wild cherry bark, glycerin.
Yeah. So, wait, what were we just talking about? Diablo?
We were talking about the El Diablo. I got to make it at Tommy's, which was awesome. And I shook in the blender pitcher, which was really cool. Like, they actually brought me...
You went boom, chung, chung?
Yeah, they brought me on a normal shaker, and I was like, no, I'm here at Tommy's. I'm going to do the actual real Tommy's shake. So if people don't know, at Tommy's, they don't use normal cocktail shakers. They shake in a large blender pitcher, and their thinking is that no one ever orders one Tommy's margarita, so they basically use it as a giant shaker.
What brand of shaker pitcher were they using?
It was probably like an Oster. It wasn't like a fancy
or maybe they're Waring, because Waring is...
It was probably Waring.
Yeah, because it's glass.
Yeah.
And the issue with blender pitchers is some of them they don't seal so good.
No, you gotta hold it, and you gotta be very careful. But then you also use it as the strainer. It was a blast.
Those stunt shakers that Plymouth used to give out, the giant ones.
Yeah, the giant Simon Ford party shakers.
Like a mother.
Yeah, he still makes them for Fords.
Yeah,
we had the Fords one at Existing.
Yeah, you know what they need?
And I think I was the only person that would pick them up.
They need some form of sealing situation.
You have to be very careful with a giant shaker.
I have a tin set at home that won't seal either. I should just throw it away. It's so irritating to have crap flying back, especially because I do a lot of colored drinks.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay, so you brought it up, ginger. Let's go into some ginger. So I've talked a lot about this thing you've been doing with magnesium carbonate. I've been doing a lot of experimenting with ginger, like a lot. So very quickly. So ginger, the ginger has two main components in it when it's fresh. It's zingiberine and gingerol, 6-gingerol, right? Now, the one that's just kind of ginger flavor is the gingiberine, but it's not the pungency. I'm telling you this because this is something that you and I are concerned with. The gingerol is the super spicy crap that's up front. The problem is...
That's where the oils are
most of the oil...
Isn't the gingerol?
Well, most of the oil is that zingiberine stuff, right? Which isn't what makes it hyper spicy, but gives it that kind of ginger candy flavor.
Yeah.
It's the gingerol that's super spicy. However, it changes over time relatively quickly into two different things. Zingerone, which is not that pungent, right? And Shogal or Shogal, I don't know how you pronounce it, which is freaking really spicy. So what you got to do is, and I've been researching this, I've been doing a bunch of testing of pressure cooking ginger. So you juice the ginger and then you pressure cook it right away to try to maintain super spiciness. Also, you know how people a lot of times will put acid directly into their ginger juice to stabilize it? I think that stabilizes the spiciness as well, but not very well. So in a couple of weeks, I should know all about the stability of ginger juice. I'll get back to you.
Yeah, for people listening, basically at existing conditions, the white whale was clear ginger juice, which we didn't know how to do. Because the normal methods we were using, like Pectin-X and Kisasol and Chitosan, did not work because there was no pectin in the ginger juice to latch onto. It just wouldn't spin well.
There is, but
it's
it
not
wouldn't knock out the starch. It wouldn't
knock the starch out. And something I've been messing around with a lot at Sunken Harbor is doing some of the methods from Darcy O'Neill's YouTube channel and his book Fix the Pumps, and I've been making a lot of soda fountain stuff, mostly for non-alcs, but now it's been bleeding into our normal alcoholic drinks. And one day, actually, this was for the launch of Tropical Standard, I was like, you know what? I want to do the bourbon special from Tropical Standard, and I want the ginger to be clear. And I just tried 7 methods on a bunch of ginger juice, and one of them was the magnesium carbonate, and then the one that was the most clear was magnesium, and I think I only had Chitosan in my fridge, and that was the one that broke, and that was the one that I sent you. Yeah, and then from there, Dave has been really just going forward with
hammering this thing down. What I want is stable, because the problem is that it loses its pungency in a day or a day and a half. And I looked at all the curves on the internet. But get this. So I used to use almost exclusively Champion juicers, right, for things like ginger. I was always a Champion guy. I use Champion for apples.
I've moved away from that too. The slow ones are way better.
I just got the Kuvings Revo 830. Holy crap! So I stayed away from things like the Green Star, which is the gear juicer that like a lot of people used to get. But these new, what they call cold press, which are basically vertical auger machines. So get this. So which one do you use?
I think it's the green. Yeah, because
oh my God.
One of my original prep persons, she's now like on the floor and with the bar team, Asia. She brought us one, and then I just started using that.
All right, the yield on the Green Stars, Sam Mason used to tell me weren't those gear based ones, but like so this Revo 830. And I think it's kind of pricey, but get this. 806 grams of ginger. Did this yesterday, right? And all you do is break them into chunks like, a couple, and throw them into the hopper, and it juices them for you. It grinds them and pushes them and get the juice out. I got 648 mils of juice out of that. That's 80% yield.
Yeah, it's way better than the Champion is great for some things, and then other things,
Anyway, so, I think I'm totally sold on this freaking, and the pulp came out so dry. I have a 4-ton press. You know the only old press that we have?
Yeah, the waffle bourbon press.
Yeah. So I built one at home, a small one, and I don't think I'm going to be able to get any more juice out of the press than I would out of this.
Are just
pretty damn
efficient.
Good. Yeah. So I might have to change my
Do we have a ginger question from Trop? Or no, we were just
someone was asking
about ginger.
Yeah, we're rapping. Someone was talking about, and I'm going to be doing a lot of work on it. I'm going to Tales of the Cocktail where we're doing another seminar. We just did a seminar at BCB.
We just did
acid
adjusting and Brix adjusting, and the fun thing was a week before I was doing a seminar at the Hukilau in Fort Lauderdale just on acid. So when we did it together, it was like way easier to bounce off of 3 people and also just, talk about multiple topics rather than just one for 40 minutes.
You like the succinic acid, by the way?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was good.
Strong. Well, anyway, so while we're talking about juicing, so we don't have to talk about it again, Alex Goody said, I love drinking vegetable juice. It's not about health. I'm just a low-quality individual. I'm looking for guidance on improving it. Preservation, quality, yield. I like beets, celery, leafy greens, and carrots. Maybe some ginger and lemon, no apples. For quality, do you think nitro muddling would be worthwhile? No. No. You don't mind. You only nitro muddle things that are like thin, that shatter easily. Like thick things like lettuce are hard because they're physically hard. So I would not do that. No. Can you nitro muddle with dry ice? No. What about freezing the greens? I don't know why you would freeze it to juice it. Everyone says soak greens before you juice them to get maximum extraction, to get the water into the cells, so that they puff up with water and then you get higher extraction.
Freezing the greens, or maybe more like carrots and stuff, it might concentrate the sugars, because in the book we do talk about freezing things like bananas or not bananas, but like strawberries and things like that, and like frozen drinks. It does seem to remove some of the water content.
Well, it breaks the stuff more, especially if you're not going to use an effective way to do it.
Yeah,
and
like the strawberry daiquiri in the book, it's better, even if you get fresh strawberries, to freeze those strawberries before doing
frozen strawberries are almost always better than freaking the strawberries you're buying in the market anyway. Oh, by the way, get this. Like, Boiron puree people. I saw them at BCB. They sell that Frais de Marais, the really good strawberry puree. I kind of want to buy that. It's going to be so expensive though.
Yeah, I mean, some of their other stuff is we when we were writing the book, we had to rely a lot on the passion fruit and the guava to a lesser extent. But it's way more available now. Like it's they sell through Amazon now. It used to be you had to go through a restaurant if you were not a restaurant person and be like, can you get me some passion fruit puree? Now it's a lot more accessible.
Yeah. Oh, and for Alex on the way out, if you want to preserve, and what I presume you mean by preserving is stop them from oxidizing, I wouldn't use citric. I'd use ascorbic, and you can add it by taste because it's going to get less acidity. Yeah. Anything else? Freezing's a good idea.
Ascorbic's good.
Freezing's a good idea on the juice.
If it ferments quickly, you can use potassium sorbate, but you have to know what you're doing.
Clarification is going to change the flavor and also won't work on things that don't have any acid in them. You need some acid for the Pectinex to work. All right. All right. For the you ready for this? Ian wants to know why do y'all mix imperial and metric units in your book?
Ian, well, I mean, there's a good reason and a not so good reason. The good reason is at least we used a bit of metric. I mean, I think the idea was for the ingredients that you have to make yourself, metric is the precision of metric was necessary.
Yeah, there's no guesswork.
But what do you use imperial units on?
The
cocktails.
We use traditional
themselves.
units for the cocktails.
An ounce isn't really an ounce; it's 30 mils.
Yeah, but I think
it's really parts.
I think there's an intent. I mean, you don't in liquid.
I say right up front that when I say ounces, that means 30 milliliters.
Okay. Yeah. Fair enough.
And that you might as well just think about it as parts.
Right. Yeah. I think that's probably a good way to approach it. The other thing is I wanted to present the recipes as they were made behind either Sunken or Exotica or even existing, which was those were the specs.
Right, but you use a 30 mil ounce there. Not on an old like 28.5 ounce.
Yeah, no, I felt like for cocktails, I wanted the regular, the regular 1 ounce, 1 teaspoon. And then for the syrups, I really wanted there to be no wiggle room or no guesswork, which is why metric works so well on those.
Yeah, but milliliters are not actually a very good cocktail unit because this, like, depending on where you are, right? If you scale everything down to a 20 mil ounce, then things start working because like quarters and eighths start being relatively even numbers, but everything has weird decimals in it. 22.5 milliliters.
Right. Yeah, I wanted accessibility too. I feel like it's actually easier and more accessible to have the syrups in grams because you're still weighing stuff anyways, right?
Yeah, once you weigh
for
stuff,
syrups.
grams.
And then with the cocktails, most people have a 2-1 jigger. They have a 3/4 half jigger. I wanted these cocktails to be able to be made at home, which we've seen a really good influx on Instagram of people making stuff from the book. I mean, what do you think so far? What have the front runners been for at home? I mean, we've seen the Navy Grog a lot.
Navy Grog is big. Bird of Paradise has become big.
Yeah, which Bird of Paradise has the cream syrup.
Cream
good.
syrup.
Yes.
Do you have a pump? It's so hard to you can't jigger that.
I have some pumps at home. Yeah.
Yeah.
We've seen the Bird of Paradise. We've seen the Strawberry Daiquiri has gotten a lot of traction, which has been fun. Basically, the
people
frozen.
are excited about the xanthan gum.
The xanthan gum.
Oh yeah, I had a question about that.
Yeah.
Somewhere.
Should we get into the?
Yeah, I got to
gum
find the
trick?
question because we have. I have a bunch of people asked about it, but
Yeah.
well,
I mean, we can give the background on it. The xanthan gum trick is.
Here you are, Matt's. Loving the book so
Yeah.
far. The xanthan gum and frozen drinks has been a game changer. Headed down the shore this summer. Any suggestion for pre-batching tiki and tropical drinks that would be good for potentially days later? Well, use adjusts. Don't use lime, right?
Yeah.
And don't put the xanthan gum in.
Yeah, a couple of things because I just did a bunch of the frozen strawberry at Clover Club during BCB. What you can do is if you're going to make a bunch of them throughout the day is melt the sugar into the lime or whatever citrus you have. Do that first, then add the spirit and make a batch of what would be like your mix. And then all you have to do is pour that mix with your crushed ice, and if you have any fruit and xanthan gum and blend.
But why not just put the xanthan, the proper amount, into the mix and wait for it to actually hydrate?
I did maybe I did it wrong. You can tell me, but I did a live event in 2019 where I did that, and it was it clumped up unevenly.
Yeah. Well, xanthan is very, very touchy, right?
Yeah.
So with xanthan, any hydrocolloid, you want to hydrate it in as close to pure water as is humanly possible.
Well, that's probably why then.
Right. So what you want to do is put the xanthan direct. If you're going to do whether it's simple syrup, whether it's lime juice, whatever, you want to put the xanthan directly into that. Then add the sugar. Completely hydrate it. Then add the sugar, and then you want to drastically reduce the amount of xanthan that you're using, because what's happening is at the lower temperature and with alcohol and with all that other stuff, you're going to get much less hydration of the xanthan than you would. So you in essence you're using much higher than the actual percentage of thickening that you're getting. And xanthan has very sharp, like, knees where all of a sudden it's like, oh, it's getting thicker, it's holding its structure, right? Which is what you're using it for, holding a structure.
Yeah, structure and texture.
And then it'll go snot.
Yeah.
Or like, so...
Which is why we only use a quarter teaspoon.
But I mean, But what I would do is I would just figure out what the actual ideal final concentration is, and then actually hydrate it beforehand. And then you could use it in batch, because, Ben, you were saying it's hard to do in a batch thing because it's going to snot up on you. Well, if you just pre-hydrate it, figure out what the actual final concentration. Maybe
we're doing enough events that's going to happen.
We can work on it because I'm doing this other stuff, and
but for everyone who's listening, basically the quick thing of where this came from is I was getting a little frustrated doing these sort of old school blender recipes and not getting the right texture, and not getting the texture as good as a frozen machine at some places like Mother's Ruin and all the places in New York that have these giant machines, because those are frozen uniformly, and obviously blender, it's very violent. You're doing it, you're not freezing uniformly. And just doing some research, I was like, who makes the best and most consistent frozen drinks on the planet? It's Starbucks. Starbucks sells the most frozen drinks in the world, probably.
They're better than a Dunkin' Donuts frozen drink?
Well,
I don't know.
but in going through like weird little like Starbucks Reddits of like people who work there and all that stuff, I found, and then you can see on their website, because they have nutrition facts, that all their like frap mixes and all that stuff all had xanthan in it. So then it was a matter of, and I was at ZZ's at the time, I was testing just different levels of it, and what I found is that adding a little bit to a frozen drink, it prevents the ice from separating, and it gives you that same texture that you get from a slushie machine, even though you're not freezing uniformly. So.
Right. You need to add enough for the crystals not to want to float.
Yeah. And you also don't want to add too much because, yes, it can get gross. So, yeah, I'm sure that the quarter teaspoon bothers you, because it would be better if there was a weight measurement.
Well, not only that, but like not all xanthans are the same density, like, by far. But but if your plan is I'm just going to over xanthan it and it's not going to hydrate anyway, but like if you're going to do a batch, we should figure out what the actual.
That's a good point.
We should figure out what the actual.
But I will say
concentration
it's fairly bulletproof, because I did this 9 times at Rain's Law Room. I've done it several times at live events, and that's the nice thing about a lot of these specs is, sometimes you put a spec out into the world and you're like, oh, I didn't test it enough, and like I forgot about this and that. There's a lot of stuff in Tropical Standard that has worked in multiple bars. It's worked in Existing, it's worked at Rain's, it's worked at Sunken. So it's had like a lot of layers of other people testing those specs out.
You know what, another thing you can do? You can make a 1% xanthan solution, which is fundamentally hair gel, and then just go and just put like a little bit of, like a knot.
I'm going to try
that.
Yeah. I like the idea of hair gel.
Yeah.
Strawberry daiquiri.
Color it red, color it green.
Yeah, exactly.
So on a similar subject, Michael picked up a used Elmeco frozen drink machine. I've used Elmeco; they're good. From eBay last week. Any recommendations on cocktail recipes for a slushie machine? How would you amend the slush recipes designed for a blender in Liquid Intelligence or Tropical Standard for a slushie machine? I've done a lot of work recently on this. What's your go-to numbers, like alcohol bricks? You like a
15.
15 what?
15 bricks is the
That's high, though, for me.
Well, it depends on your machine, because Frosty Factory, the range that they recommend is between like 12 and like even higher, like 18.
Yeah.
So I'm like right in the middle.
So for me, I ran a bunch of tests on a machine where I could. So by the way, just FYI, machines like Elmeco don't actually control the temperature; they control the texture. Right? Like less expensive machines, like consumer machines, have a thermometer in it, and it's measuring the temperature. So you're shooting for a temperature, right?
Yeah.
So it's totally different. So my quick specs were testing, right? That if you do a 6% alcohol drink at 12 bricks, it is a firm, stiff drink at -6.5 degrees Celsius, and it'll hold between 15 and 18 minutes before it totally breaks without xanthan. All right.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't put xanthan in a frozen machine.
But I don't know, maybe you should, because then you firm and stiff at 9.4% alcohol by volume, and 9 bricks, which is what I shoot for, is about 11 to 15 minutes and has a higher alcohol and lower sugar, which I like. And then you want a really soft slush, minus 12%, 12.5% ABV and 12 bricks, goes all the way to -13 Celsius, so real cold, like brain freeze, only lasts 11 minutes and gets real watery. But a sweet spot, if you need a high alcohol, 14 ABV and 8.5 bricks holds, but it's thinner. So I would shoot, for me, like right now, what I'm going for is that like between 9 and 10 alcohol and between 9 and 10 bricks. and it's holding pretty well.
Yeah, I think it depends on the drink too, because like I did in the book. We have a frozen version of the Derby Daiquiri, which is essentially a frozen orange daiquiri, and I did it at 13 at an event, and then I did it at 15 at the launch, and I felt like just the texture was better.
Of what?
Of the Derby Daiquiri. Like at the launch, it was 15 bricks, and then at an event before, I was sort of testing it, and it was 13. But it's funny
in a blender.
No, in a frozen machine.
In a frozen machine.
Yeah. But it's funny. I mean, doing all these events, like Ben was like the frozen drink wrangler. Like we had to find machines in all these cities.
It's really hard to get those machines.
Hard.
I'll get you hooked in with the Olmeco people, but they're good. But the issue is that you can't just adjust bricks. It's bricks and alcohol together need to be adjusted.
Oh no, absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So like what ABV are you going at?
Well, okay. The way I've been doing this is been doing a single drink, measuring the non-alc ingredients in the refractometer with the lime, the sugar, water, what have you, and then estimating with the inclusion of alcohol how that would hit 15 or 13, but making a single one and then freezing that single one in a freezer just to see if, like how it
freezer's way too cold though.
Well, what you do is you freeze it for a couple hours, you break it up with a fork, which is sort of like the churning of the machine, put it back in. And we have a method in Tropical Standard, the frosty.
Because all my freezer drinks are much higher alcohol because you can go much colder. It's much colder. You know what I mean? Right? You know what we used to do.
Yeah.
But here's how I do it. I always go huge. I don't ever think about an individual drink. I go huge. I'm like, I want to make like a liter, let's say. I want to make a liter. So I got 1,000 units. What do I want the ABV to be? And then I add however many units of whatever liquor until the ABV is what it is. And it's almost always doesn't have enough sugar in it. Then I'm like, how many sugar units do I have left to make 1,000 milliliters, the sugar level I want? I add those sugars. Then I'm like, how much acid do I want that's not already there? I add that amount of acid. And then if I am lucky, which I almost always am, there is room for water.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that doing the individual thing is kind of interesting for like home bartenders. It's sort of like what we did at Existing. It's freezing a very small amount, which we have the Frosty Buck in the Tropical Standard, and then breaking it up and then freezing it again, and then you can kind of just do a small pulse blend on it or something, and that gives you sort of an estimation of what it is, and then you can just scale up from there.
The kind of pitfall I ran into when I was first writing Liquid Intelligence is I was doing everything either in blenders or freezers without a machine, and I wasn't thinking about melt time as much. You know what I mean? And so it's like I think a lot of people.
We were lucky when we were R&Ding. Yeah, I'm sure you remember this, Ben, that when we were R&Ding a lot of the frozens, it was super hot out. Like, and it was in my kitchen that wasn't air conditioned. So I felt like it forced us to think about, like, I feel like if we had done the strawberry in the winter, we wouldn't have been as critical of it. But because we were in super, super hot weather, we had more of a. I mean, you remember that session, right, Ben?
Of course, it's like summer 21.
Yeah.
So, Dave, you're looking for. Are you looking for things that hold the texture longer? Is that the concept?
I think people want it. Yeah. So, like the drinks that I enjoy drinking the most are relatively frozen style, are relatively higher alcohol than is practicable, because they turn liquid very quickly. So like, I would be making drinks that were similar to our BDX margarita, which is just barely a slush when it comes out.
It was on shaved ice.
Yeah, it's basically liquid. Yeah. But I shoot for those kind of numbers, which were higher originally. But the problem with them is, and even like my old blender, my old frozen daiquiris, which you do in Ziplocs, or like I would take something like Dolan Blanc and add vodka to it, to jack the alcohol level to get the alcohol, and it forms a slush. But if you don't drink it pretty quickly, it waters out. So I've been doing a lot more work now on dropping the ABV increasing the sugar slightly, but trying to hit that sweet spot of how long is it, how can I make it not so sweet, but also make it not melt so quickly? And then what temperature is it really best served at? You know what I mean?
Yeah, we experimented with the banana daiquiri because, the tough part about that drink is like you don't necessarily want the bananas to be frozen. You can freeze them and then unfreeze them to get like some better sugars and stuff. But with that one, we actually froze the spirit before doing it, which dropped the temperature a lot more.
Right, but it's helpful depending on what you're going to add.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All right. Timberino asks about drink mixers and spindle blenders. Hamilton Beach has a couple sub $100. Are they good enough for occasional home use?
Oh, absolutely.
Sure.
Yeah. We also just did a shift at the Berkshire Room in Chicago where those were the only ones I used, and it was fine.
Yeah. And in a similar thing, Paul Gersman writes in, what would your preferred alternative method for flash blending a drink geared towards home enthusiasts without counter space for a drink mixer? I've seen a couple of folks recommend an immersion blender, but it seems likely to overmix the drink.
No, use the immersion, but just be wary that there is a blade on the end of it, and to basically 3 pulses and you're good.
Hey, you want me to make you an attachment for a stick blender? That's a
yes,
because it's totally doable.
Yeah, yes,
like a very minor cage, How fast do those guys go? The spindle blenders.
I'll show. I mean, the old Hamiltons were pretty strong.
Well, I mean, but are they the same speed as a blender, or does it need to be geared?
No, it's basically the same speed.
So you just need a disc attachment for a stick blender.
Yeah,
that's no problem. What you do is you buy a Bamix. Bamix might already make it. Actually, have you ever tried the cream discs on a Bamix?
No, I don't know what a cream disc is.
Oh, so Bamix, who I don't actually like their stick blenders because they got a little bit of flex, even though they look kind of robo and they don't pop off, they screw off, right? But they sell one of their things is it looks like a disc on the end. And they have interchangeable heads, right? Mm-hmm. I've never tried it, but I would like to hear what you have to say. And in fact, I might have one somewhere. Anyway, and it comes with a package, right? And you put the disc on, and you're meant to whip cream with it.
Oh, okay.
So I wonder whether it would perform the same thing, and it doesn't have a blade, so you might be able to take that thing on a carry-on because there's no blade.
Yeah, that's the thing. I brought an immersion blender to...
Yeah, they let you?
To hook it. Well, I checked it.
Oh, yeah.
But I needed to flash blend 100 drinks. So instead of bringing the big blender down, I just brought and I just pulsed it. I mean, if you kind of cut your time to 3 seconds, and if you don't have crushed ice, it actually works even better because if you have crappy deli ice, you can actually break the ice up a little bit.
Try the Bamix because in my mind also it doesn't have a full cage, so it does not a bell, it's more of the cage, so you can actually get more like a spindle blender kind of action on it. Yeah, just check it out. Let me know, and we'll let these folks know. All right. So that was Paul Gersman on blending, and we have one other blending thing. I've been playing with vacuum blending. So Andrew Cummings wants to know, I recently looked at Void Systems blender. What do you think of the blender compared to Vitamix for non-vacuum use? Well, just quickly, their blender, the problem with the Void blender is it's loud as all get out. The actual blender is so loud. And also the slow speed on the Void is 17,000 RPM.
Super aggro. Yeah.
Yeah. So it goes between 17,000 and 30, whereas a Vitamix goes between 1,700 and 30. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so
which sometimes you need the slow setting.
Right.
If you're going to do frozen drinks, sometimes in the book we talk about dry blending, you need to melt the sugar into the juice, and if it's going to 17,000, that's not going to happen. It's just gonna bounce everywhere.
So but the pitcher is very good. I had actually initial really good luck with vacuum. Have you played with vacuum blending at all?
No.
Yeah. So I had some initial good luck because, I'm trying to figure out ways that people don't need to get LN to get good results. And all my side-by-sides between liquid nitrogen and blending, liquid nitrogen always wins by a little bit. So my initial tests with the vacuum blender were with mint, and I was able to vacuum blend mint drinks and have them be good, which is, crazy. I did a nitro Southside, and it was really good. Well, not nitro, blender model. But then I had people over and I did Thai basils, which is a little more sturdy of an herb, with regular, not vacuum, and vacuum, same blender pitcher, just with and without a vacuum. And I thought I could tell the difference, but I served it to a bunch of people and they couldn't tell the difference.
Nice.
So I need to figure out. I need to run some more tests.
I still haven't made you the Thai basil drink in the book.
No, well, next time I come over. All right, so I think we covered some other blending. Billy Thunder wants to know, how do you harvest a citrus peel for oleos? In the book, you say use a knife and not a peeler. And quoting you, cut the citrus peels with a knife to retain the oils in the peels. While faster, a peeler expresses oils from the peel when cutting to the fruit, and we want the oils to stay where they are, so knife is preferred. Why not just use more peel then? Have you actually measured have you done the taste difference?
No, I have. Yeah, there's the taste difference. It's not so much. It's just more extraction. So yeah, you're right. You could use more of peeled, but it's also if you're just.
Well, Billy wants to know: do you just juice the fruit and cut the flesh out and leave on a lot of pith? No, you always take the peel first. Anyway,
peel first.
Or do you Iron Chef style just the citrus with a knife and retain a little bit? In other words, do you flip it over and take the white off?
No, we always peel first and then juice.
Yeah,
after.
I would just add a couple extra freaking peels, man. Use the peeler's so fast.
Yeah,
peeler's so fast.
Well, if you have a really good, the reason we wrote that is because most people don't have like really good thick peelers. They have like the I'm not going to name a brand, but you know which ones. Where and then all the oil just spills out of those, and you get like very little extraction. So you just wasted your time.
Yeah. Garrett's like, if you have a really good prep person, then a knife's not a problem.
Hey, most oleos for years, I was doing all of that for every single event.
Oh, no one's calling you lazy. Yeah. All right, JPM, can you share a bit about forced carbonation stations and existing conditions? I know it's been talked about in the show briefly, but haven't found any information on what's involved. And for Garrett, we'll talk about that later, JPM, because we don't have a lot of time unless Garrett wants to talk about it. Also for Garrett, I know you mentioned forced carbonation in a bar when talking about the Kingston Zing, but opt for adding carbonation in the form of soda water to make it more accessible.
Yeah.
Is this how you would serve it? Or the Pim's Tropical at the Sunken Harbor, too. That's good. But your Pim's a bit strong.
It's good, yeah.
I sent an English lady that Ben and I met at Norton's 100-year anniversary.
Oh, to have it? Yeah.
And she was like, I don't like Pimm's. I was like, you're wrong. Why don't you go to Sunken Harbor? Yeah. You're not wrong. You can't say you don't like it until you've had the one from Sunken Harbor.
It's not on the menu anymore.
Ben, is that right or wrong? You can't say you don't like the drink if you've only had the iterations.
She was closed-minded to the idea.
Yeah. But I think that's a mistake.
I think it is.
Yeah.
I think it is.
Well, Ben has been really good at some of these events of like, people are like, I don't like passion fruit. And he's like, yeah, but Garrett knows how to use it properly. Yeah. And then like wins those people over.
JPM wants to know.
Always be closing.
Jim, always. ABC, always be closing. You got the Alex Baldwin, like brass balls behind
I bring
you.
that with me to the bars.
Yeah.
To answer the question.
Coffee is for closers. Yeah.
Cocktails
in the book,
closers.
we talk about sort of a way around not setting up a carbo rig. At Sunken, I have a carbo rig, so the Kingston Zing and those types of drinks are fully forced carbonated at Sunken. But in the book, there's a method of getting around that if you don't want to build that whole thing. So
right, Henry Batts wants to know what your favorite non-rum tiki drinks are.
I mean, there's a whole book full of them.
The Saturn is one of the few that come to mind. Yeah, but Henry wants to know.
Part of the idea of this book is, to show the tropical drinks are a big tent. It's not just about, rum.
I actually really love. I like Scotch a lot in tropical drinks. There's an old Trader Vic drink in the book called the London Sour that I think is very refreshing. Like almond and certain scotches is great together. Nutty Scotch.
Scotch. Yeah. I used to do a distillation of blended Scotch and peanuts.
Yeah. So there you go.
Yeah. Doers and nuts. Yeah. Nils Norn and I used to do that because he actually is a famous grouse man. I think maybe famous grouse is more popular as an inexpensive blended Scotch.
Yeah, I feel like I don't see it as often anymore.
I like the grouse.
Yeah, it's famous. It's the grouse.
Yeah.
John the Hutt. He had an issue. See if you've ever had this happen. He had this anise drink, Anise del Mono, which I've never tried.
Oh, from Spain?
Yeah, the red label, not the green. Had it in his freezer at minus 20 Celsius. Since I don't have ice, I mixed it with water from the tap, which is about 20, again, Celsius. Instead of lushing, it separated into bizarre crystals and formed a layer at the top of the glass. I do not recommend eating those crystals. What happened? I've never heard of this happening. You ever heard of this happening?
No, I mean, there's not enough ABV for it to survive the freezer, so...
What? No, but I mean, the
20%?
anise, I've never really had Lucia. Like, why would it form crystals? There's got to be something weird in there. John the Hutt, there's got to be something like...
sugar? I mean...
I don't know. No, but if sugar wouldn't crystallize out like that. I don't know what the hell's happening. I don't know what's going on. Alexander Talgard writes in... Oh, wait, that's not how he pronounces his name.
I got one more. I got one more question.
All right, what do you got?
From Patreon.
What do you got?
Rojo asks, regarding salt in drinks, I'm interested in reducing the number of bottle touches during service. if I have a syrup or other ingredient used in one specific cocktail, is there any reason I shouldn't just dope it with the appropriate level of salt?
That's what I do at events.
Okay, so if you had to do it after the syrup is 100% complete, because if you do it before that, it's going to screw up the bricks, right?
Well, for low percentages, salt adds about 1 bricks level per percent salt.
Okay,
it
so
happens to be about the same, right? So
Yeah.
you're not going to affect it drastically. Same with acids. Acids don't affect it as much as I thought. I've been having to reread a bunch of this crap.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would add to the problem with adding it to syrup in general is that if you have a low syrup drink that uses a lot of a modifier, right, then your ratios aren't going to be the same. I think at a bar, like if you're going to be doing a bunch of drinks with salt, then a couple of droppers looks good. But if you really need to minimize touches, yeah, syrup.
Also, just like, what if you want to reduce the sweetener for an individual guest? Then you're combining two things that don't necessarily relate to each other.
All right. Okay. So, do you want to talk about orgeat, or you want me to save orgeat?
What's the orgeat question?
Well, he wants to make Alexander wants to make an orgeat from plum kernels and wants to talk a lot about cyanide and whether it's
Let's
safe.
save that question.
All right.
We're not taking legal questions.
Yeah.
All right. So in the 1 minute and 24 seconds that's left to us, what do you want to talk about what you've been doing and what you haven't been doing?
Next
that we didn't
thing
get
up,
to?
we'll all be at Tales.
Yeah.
You guys are doing a talk. We've got book signings a couple times. We're doing an event on Thursday afternoon at Palm and Pine where you can come and have some of Garrett's drinks if you're going to be at Tales of the Cocktail this July.
Oh wait, but they're coming. But most people won't hear it until after because it goes live for people who aren't Patreon. But if you're in the Patreon, you
Isn't
can
it
go
going
to
live this week?
It goes live Friday. Well, you said it's this Thursday or next Thursday?
No,
during Tales of the
during
Cocktail.
Oh. Yeah, our talk at Tales of the Cocktail is about the daiquiri.
Daiquiri deep dive.
Yeah.
And then, Ben and I were going to do a book signing and a bar takeover.
I've been cheating. I've been doing the testing.
Good, you should. Yeah.
Delicious.
I like.
Be prepared.
Well, so what we're testing is sugar versus simple syrup versus rich simple. Or I don't even know how many that we're doing. That's one of the main tests. And can I tell you a spoiler because I've been doing a lot of work?
Yeah.
Okay. So most people, it was very marginal. Most people preferred the rich.
Interesting.
They didn't tell that much of a difference between rich and sugar. And when you look at the numbers, 88. So like if you add 1 milliliter of rich simple 2-to-1 is 88 is 0.88 grams of sugar.
All right. That's a preview for the seminar, folks.
And only 0.4 of water.
So now I don't have to come to the seminar. That's it.
You're done.
Okay,
no,
good.
But I actually preferred the 1-to-1 because I like my drinks a little less, I like a little more diluted. But there's a little bit of a weird Megillah because like when you shift dilutions, you also want to shift sugar. So Shannon, who's one of our talkers, has very low sugar on her sugar things.
Yeah.
And because there's less dilution, it can probably tolerate less sugar and higher acid. So it's kind of an interesting little interplay. A lot for us to talk about at Tales of the Cocktail.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I'm excited.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on.
thank
Tropical
you.
Standard.
Yeah.
Go buy the book. Buy it at Kitchen Arts and Letters, or buy it at McNally Jackson. Buy it, but if you have to buy it off of Amazon, buy it off of Amazon. Whatever, man. Just buy it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just buy the book.
Have fun with
and
it.
go to Sunken Harbor. Thanks, guys.
Yeah. Thank you, Dave.
All right.
Thanks, Dave.
Cooking issues.